Have you ever watched the images of children in Gaza and just felt completely helpless? Like you want to do something, but you don't know what you could possibly do to help them? Well, my guest today is someone who saw it firsthand and rolled up his sleeves and decided to do something about it. Not just any child in Gaza, but those who've lost absolutely everything, including their parents. Let me introduce American-Palestinian neurosurgeon David Hassan. David, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Sally, and it's a pleasure. I really appreciate it.
It's really great to meet you. I've read about you and the extraordinary work that you're doing in Gaza. Now, there are thousands of kids that have lost their parents in this war, thousands. We don't even know the exact number. I think the UN estimated it was at least 17,000. And then there's a lot more than that who've lost one parent, but at least 17,000 that have lost both. You have set up an orphan village, as it's known, in Gaza to look after them. Explain to me what that is and what you're doing.
That time, the WHO called for surgeons to go to Gaza. I happened to be one of 18 surgeons, 4 from the States, 2 from Canada, and 12 from England. And we convened as one group. We were the first convoy, December 2023. We entered, I was the leader of the group. And that, when things changed completely. That's when I operated in horrific, ungodly, unhuman conditions to save kids, and I couldn't save them. That part was part of the trauma, and that's, while I was doing things and helping as much as I can, was a drop in the ocean. And I felt very, very flustered in that. And I was only reaching out and helping a very, very few small number, even though I took myself out of the comfort zone from the United States to go into a war zone. I felt I'm not doing anything. I felt I'm not achieving what I could and potentially I could. And that was the beginning of the motivation why I moved forward with this bigger concept and bigger approach and initiative.
So you're world-renowned in terms of your surgery when it comes to neurosurgery. And you were born in Kuwait to Palestinian parents, but you're an American. You live in North Carolina. Now, when you were in Gaza, when you went in December 2023, you say you worked in the most, horrific conditions. Just explain to people what you mean by that.
First, when we dropped by Rafah crossing and crossed, we rode in ambulances because that's the only mode of transportation at that time that was the safest. And from small windows, we looked around and we saw complete disaster, destruction, buildings. As we enter the premise of the hospital, we encountered a sea of people who are taking refuge in this hospital. Literally, it's a hospital of 250 beds, but there was almost 100,000 people in it. And people were living inside the hospital, in the elevators, and even to some extent in the bathroom. And the trash is building up, and the sewage control. It was different. But all that, I arrived, and the minute I arrived, I refused to kind of meet and do the introduction. I went straight to the operating room. And as I went there, first thing I encountered, there was no water to wash your hands to do the surgery. The next thing, is the equipments are not working. Some literally during half of the procedure, the anesthetics we ran out of the anesthetic gas, and the patient was waking up while we were doing the surgery. And the equipments were not as up to date, if you will. And that continued in terms of also the actual bombing, when the bombing was happening close to the hospital. that sound. It was the first time it was disturbing. I literally, I was on a step stool operating, and because of the magnitude of the bomb and the waves, I fell off, and I just ran to kind of hide, and everybody was laughing at me. It's like, okay, you'll get used to it. This is a routine. And it became, at the end, it was routine. It would not change it. But that's one story. The other source is we have casualties come in scores, and you only have one room. And at one time, I had to operate on 2 patients simultaneously because we didn't have enough room. And on top of that, we have one anesthesiologist doing both. We have to be creative. One time I operated in the hall because we didn't have access to the OR. On top of that, the worst thing is there was a lot of, when it happened, there was a lot of kids that could be salvaged. And because of the limitation of the number of the ICU beds and the ventilators and the OR, we had to let them go. And that was the most painful, till today haunts me, where you could, if you were in a decent, you don't have to be, even in a third world country development, you could save that kids, but then because of these conditions, you couldn't. And we also had to perform C-section. At that time, things have changed drastically, but at that time, C-section was, because when you're there, you lend help to anything and everything. And I suddenly became a general practitioner who deliver kids, amputate, and we had to do all this without anesthetics and pain. And even kids, who have severe injury because of the shock. And I'm happy to show you videos where they're just look at you stunned, and you do the whole surgery and they're not moving or crying or anything.
Oh my God.
So that's some of the picture, if you will, that I saw and encountered and had to deal with it and documented, if you will.
David, while you were going through that in December 2023, I had my first child that month in London. And I've never talked about this publicly, but it was also a C-section, and it didn't go to plan, and it became quite chaotic, and an emergency medical team had to work on me for half an hour, and I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. And I remember going into recovery after what was a really scary experience, and holding our baby for the first time, and saying to my husband, and this was the first thing I said to him, I said, can you believe women in Gaza are going through that without proper medical support, without anesthetics? And that I thought about them in that moment. And obviously you've just described having to give C-sections to mothers with no anesthetic. You've described the war in Gaza as something that broke you inside. What was that moment? When was it?
I think when I came outside, when I left Gaza, and that time, I didn't want to leave. I was sick. I caught COVID at that time, even though I was vaccinated, but in milder form, but the conditions made it exacerbated. And I haven't had a shower for 7-8 days. My wife felt very sorry for me. She even, funny, she upgraded me to a first class, so when I arrived in Frankfurt, I can take a shower there. But during the whole time, while in the first class, flying back home, I refused to eat. I refused to eat any of the food. And for a while, I didn't eat food because I just felt so guilty, where I can have the luxury to enter Gaza and leave Gaza and then enjoy, life. And here are innocent people, majority of them, 80%, who their only guilt, their only crime is they were born in Gaza. Yeah. These people, they really, really peaceful people, majority of them. They, like you and I, they want to have a good life, a shelter for their kids, food and education. They just want to provide like any parents. And they just got caught in the middle in this, and war. And you could hear from their voices. I mean, and the women I talk to who are very reasonable, and they felt the pain of the Israeli moms for October 7th. And truly, and I heard it firsthand. People don't believe it, but that's their choice. That these women experienced that because, unlike men, women are different. They have a sisterhood around the world, and if you're a mom, that connection, the bond, it's amazing because you're into a better call. A whole is to care for these kids, which I experienced both on both sides, the Israeli side and also the Gazan side. So that moment, that's when I felt and going out. And unfortunately, this war is being politicized, weaponized for groups out there who are really, they're not into the human or humane saving, humane rescue or helping people. It was more to advance their agenda. And when I got there, that's when I felt and I interviewed with so many journals and TVs, but nothing to happen, nothing changed. And that's when I immediately realized that we lost our humanity.
I think this feeling that you're describing will resonate with so many people around the world because it's not just about being a mother, it's about being a human being. You see these children suffering and they've done nothing wrong and they are the innocent victims caught in the crossfire of all of this. And not only have they lost their homes, so many of them have lost their parents. And I think so many of us who have been watching the horror on social media of this war being documented in real time, and it hasn't been stopped. You know, for 2 years, nothing has really changed. I mean, there's been ceasefires, but then the fighting returns and tens of thousands of people have been killed. I mean, the whole place is a wasteland. And the closest I've got to Gaza as an international journalist is in an airdrop flight over Gaza. You know, it's so deeply frustrating not to be able to be there, to bear witness, and to do what you feel you should be doing, to try and shout, you know, about the horrors that are happening. But you were on the ground in Gaza, and you felt compelled to do something, and you have done something absolutely extraordinary, which I think we should talk about now, David, which is that you saw all these children who have lost their parents, and for many of us, I've been wondering, who on earth is looking after them? I mean, you know that the UN's there, you know that there are NGOs there, but really, what is their life like day to day? Well, you know, in July you opened this orphan village. Explain to people what that is and what state the children were in when they came to you.
And I personally wanted to do something, and I could see the paintings from there from a daughter, because once you have a daughter, you can realize. And for me to go inside Gaza back and again, which I went several times, is not in itself enough to make the difference. So we decided to build a village. And we wanted originally the village to be a big one for, as you mentioned, 17 to 20,000 kids, where we have a big shelter, an academy, a pediatric, a field hospital, and also a rehabilitation. But we were unable to do that magnitude. So what we revert to is to start as a pilot, because as you mentioned, the war, ceasefire, stop, ceasefire, and active operation. And we can implement this huge project. So what we did is we chose an area which is Deir Balah, which is one of the areas in Gaza in the middle that saw the least of operation, military operation. And we wanted to create that first pilot because either makes it or breaks it. And so we did. We started July 1st. We finished July 25th, the shelter, which is, by the way, it's not a building. It's tents, durable tents, multi-purpose, multi-seasonal tents. And we expected 200 orphans to show up because we wanted to be embedded within the shelter itself. so the kids have easier access to us, and they don't have to travel a distance and expose themselves to danger. Most of these kids are living with their extended family or host families or good people. When we expected 200, the first day, July 26, about 500 showed up. And a lot of them were in wheelchairs, injured, lost with amputations, external fixation. But the really biggest thing is half of them showed up and haven't had meals for 4 or 5 days. And literally, we have to understand the time difference. So it's about 7 hours. When I wake up now every day at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, so I can catch the time zone. I only sleep about 2-3 hours a day because I have a full-time job. So I got the phone call immediately. He said, Dr. Hassan, we have these kids and starving and we cannot proceed forward. So I picked up the phone. I called my buddy. I called my buddy is Jose Andreas, who's the founder of Flow Center Kitchen. And I said, Jose, I need food. And I say, David, I just started about a week ago. We're given the green light and I have 500,000 people to feed. You're out of the grid, with your academy. I said, listen, you have 500 orphans. These are the coordinates. Tomorrow you have meals there. And bless his heart. And I wish one day he win the Peace Nobel Prize. And the next day, it was food delivered, and since then, continuously on a daily basis. So we started that as an academy where we teach the kids, and then suddenly we providing hot meals. And we didn't stop on that because we really wanted to do a holistic approach, which is my thing, is as extrapolated that from my career. I just didn't want to be just a neurosurgeon. I did everything I can to be the top in the world. The same thing, I wanted to provide a brand care for these kids, comprehensive, holistic care. We immediately acquired a doctor and several nurses who came in and looked after the kids. And also we acquired a psychologist. We hired them and started doing a group therapy. One of them is an art where now the kids do paintings. We exchange them with schools around the world. And literally the kids in other schools around the world, they send their paintings back via iPhone and videos for solidarity. So that was the whole thing, the holistic approach: education, healthcare, food, nutrition, and also psychotherapy. Because of that, we increased about 600 within a couple of weeks. And the word got out, and then Khan Yunus asked us to build similar to that, and we did. And this time we built it for 1,500. On October 1st, we had 1,500 kids. We give the priorities to kids orphaned to 2 parents, and then a single parent, then the vulnerable kids. And if we have room, we allow regular kids from neighboring to come in. And we did, and it was an amazing opening. We have 300 kids in waiting on the waiting list. And then suddenly the community around Gaza, north, south, middle, they're crying for our help, which we then expanded now to 4 academies. It will be done in 10 days, and we will open 4 academies. Each will host 1,500 or serve 1,500. So we expect to have about 7,500 orphans mid-November that we will care for and provide this holistic approach. And on top of that, now we've been approached by the area, northern Gaza, Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia, and Jabalia to build this mega school for them for 2,500. But we are limited with our resources. We are very small NGO. We're only like 6 months. And we're making these moves. We didn't stop right there, Sally, because again, I wanted to do this approach. I was saw it firsthand, but also heard from inside the hospital that there are infants born and they're not getting the adequate supplies and baby formulas because their mom's fatigued, tired, they cannot breastfeed and things like that. So our group was able immediately to enter the first baby formulas since March the 2nd. And we're now actively distributing the special baby formulas, which is very rare, and we're doing that. We also do in medicine, and we entered the first 500 wheelchairs in Gaza. And on top of that, Sally, on top of that, I'm traveling just 2 weeks ago, and I landed from China to go to Pakistan to give talks about my research, and I get this panic phone call, which usually happens from before 8 o'clock. We have an emergency, and I said, "What is the emergency?" It's like, "Well, we have a zoo, and animals that half of them are dead, and the other half is being in very horrible conditions." And so I immediately tried to reach out and get these animals out of the Gaza, but we couldn't. And the kids found out about it, the academy kids. And they begged me, it's like, "Hey, we did possible to keep the zoo and help us." And yes, so I said, "For you guys, I'll do anything." And suddenly now we have a zoo that is attached to one of the academies. We're looking after the zoo. The kids, every day, that's their approach. They just come in, they just want to help, and they don't want to go to the classes because they want to play with the animals. And it's become that therapeutic mode for them. And also teach them responsibility. So we have now a mini zoo. We have 3 lions. We have baboons. We have monkeys. We have all kind of things. And we're looking after them. And we called it after Jane Goodall because her humane approach. So that's one thing. And the biggest thing, Sally, is, as you know, the trauma itself, as horrible as it is, and I explained to you, that's only a small pocket of what these kids are experiencing in whole. And I saw it firsthand through the videos and the conversation with my teachers and everything. We have kids who have cancer, have congenital problem, have lung problem, and we cannot evacuate them. And this is where I stay apolitical and have and continued since day one. But shamefully, most of these countries around the world, they will evacuate 100 or 200 kids. They make a big PR out of it, and that's it. And that process itself, why is it good? Still bad. Why? Because you're only allowing the sick child and single parent to leave Gaza. And that in itself lead to fracturing of the family, because the only thing left for these people is the family. And now you're fracturing that. You travel them to a different country that speaks different language, different cultures. They're stuck in a room. They don't have that support. It emotionally more stressful to them. I heard it firsthand than they staying in Gaza. And to the point, some families where I was able, just a couple of weeks, able to help to get this family to go to Bosnia and Italy, and the mom refused to take her child because she didn't want to divide the family. So she refused that the child will die. But there are tens of thousands of kids now who are chronically ill that haven't had adequate care for the last 2 years and dying as we speak, you and I, Sal. So that's where I came up with the grandiose. And one thing we describe ourselves is we're outrageously ambitious. We wanted to do a pragmatic, practical solution. And that is to take a hospital and convert it to be the only pediatric hospital. That idea of building a hospital was only 2 weeks. And now we're in the process of acquiring a building, a private hospital, 10 floors and equipped, and we're ready to convert it to a children's hospital. We have contacted the CEO of Sick Children Hospital in Toronto, which is ranked #1 in the world, Gosh Hospital in London, and the Irish. And these 3 hospitals, very eager. Within minutes, they responded to the email, the CEOs, and they said, "We are with you. Show us the way." And the COGAT, the IDF, approved the concept in principle. Direct relief. They said, "David, we can provide any medicine, any supplements you need." Israeli team, the best engineers, the best logistic people who built the #1 hospital, Hadassah and others, they all stand by. But the only problem is we lack the money. And I reached out to the Dutch ambassador, the Japanese ambassador, and other countries. And sadly enough, they don't want to help, period. These countries...
Why not? Why don't they want to help?
Well, I'll explain to you. These countries who cry and politicize this and says, Israel is not doing enough and blaming, and it's only a game. I really believe it's a political game. And I said, okay, here you are. You have a hospital that is ready to function immediately. And we de-risked it. Yes, it's on the other side of the yellow line, which is within that area Hamas controlled. But the hospital owner and the elders of the team, because what we did to the community in Gaza and what we've done, we also built and built tents for 5,000 families. 5,000 families just the last week. So everybody believe in our NGO, and they promised, as they promised to protect the academies and the villages, they provide protection for this structure. And COGAT will also do their due diligence by making sure there's no tunnels and everything. And we have world-renowned teams, Sick Children Hospital, Direct Relief, MSF and IMC ready to engage at one point. We haven't invited them, but I trust they will. But these countries will use anything. Well, we're not going to engage till Hamas disarm. Okay? Well, that's, as you said, it's been 2 years a process. And to wait for this to happen, we don't know. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen months. And to use that logic is only an indication that you're really not interested. And then the second thing is, why don't you have it on the other side of the yellow line under the IDF? Well, if we do that, that's an area no man's zone. No one can go there to get the care.
Yeah. It's hugely dangerous. People are being shot going the wrong side of the yellow line.
And so, and then the other idea is like, well, this is an investment for us. It's like, well, this is only $2-3 million a year. This is a drop in the ocean. And they said, yeah, it's a drop in the ocean, but well, we don't want it to invest. And then Hamas come in and the IDF has to bomb it. And that's like, you can create every excuse you can. I can't guarantee myself I'm going to live the next day. I could drop myself and die. I offered you every opportunity to do risk this for you from every party and branding this hospital and people ready. And it's on you, countries, that you're crying foul. And you know what? I'm going to be fucked. Who gives the fuck about recognizing the Palestinian state hollowly, and yet you can't help the kids? I don't want words. Our motto is we don't speak words, we speak action. And with this problem, we work tirelessly. I mean, it's easy for me to indulge in my career, which I've done for 40, 50, for 4 or 5 decades. And I make 7 figures and I'm happy. But I chose to the humane side. And our group, Palestinians and Israelis, not just Palestinians, Israelis, which is half of our donors are Israelis because they want to make the difference and change. They don't speak on behalf of their government. They speak on behalf of humanity. These Israelis want to help and literally doing everything they can. Yes, there are extreme on both sides, but the majority wants to be in the middle. And we don't believe in coexistence. Coexistence is a dirty word. I can be in salad with you in the same room, coexist with you, but I hate your guts and can't wait for the minute to gut you out. I don't believe in normalization. And that's my values. And my team, thousands of volunteers, believe the same thing because I vet each one of them. We don't believe in normalization because it's a commercial business term. What we truly believe, our groups, Palestinians and Israelis, we are better together. Better together. Because if you do that, you do care about that person. You want the best for that person, and same thing, they do the same thing. That's what we really do. That's our NGO. It's all about. And I hope these countries can hear this and make a difference instead of yapping like a chihuahua and bark without a bite.
David, it's truly inspiring listening to what you've created. So not just one orphanage, but now several orphanages in Gaza will be open by mid-November if your plans go ahead. You're now trying to create a pediatric hospital, the only pediatric hospital in Gaza. You've received extraordinary support from private donors, including Israelis, but less so from governments around the world.
Zero.
What do you want? Zero governments. From Washington to Brussels, zero governments.
0 penny from governments. While I sat in front of I will speak it out loud. I sat with the front of the Royal Jordanian family. I sent a message to the chief of staff of Queen Rania just a few days ago. No response. I sent in front of the Greek government, the Cyprus government, the UN, the EU, now, as explained to you, the Dutch government. I sat in front of the Japanese ambassador. I had a dinner with him in Tel Aviv. And he was indulged buying the most expensive wine that could be there. And I'm speaking like you in terms. And he says, in our culture, we don't believe in a single human being. We believe in collectively because of the incarnation. So we as a government, we need to kind of feel that this could change geopolitical. And for me, I'm the opposite. I come in from, the Torah, that if you save one life, you save the whole world. And to me, when I heard that, I almost left the dinner, and it was very heated conversation. But I said that in respect to my colleague who introduced us. And so these are the government. Literally, the governments are not in the business of saving kids. They really don't care, honestly, because if they care, here's an opportunity, a huge opportunity to take a building is facilitated, de-risked, ready to operate, everything, and it only costs $3-4 million a year. And you're saving tens of thousands of kids instead of sending your own private plane to land in Tel Aviv, do the logistics, as I explained to you, ship them would cost millions, but just more for the PR on the TV.
David, if you could speak to world leaders watching this, what would you want to tell them about what you see Gaza's kids going through, the orphans that you look after, in terms of their physical needs and their psychological ones?
I just want them to remember, I'm sure each one of them is a parent, is a father, is a mother. I want them to remember the day when I hope and pray that our kids are being healthy all the time. But like you said, they've gone through that experience. I'm sure one of them, I've seen that, where the kids are so sick and they run to the hospital and they feel helpless. Even though as a world leader, they felt as helpless because it's not under their control. It's the divine power and the healthcare. Imagine that moment. Relive that moment. And imagine this now. These are the kids of Gaza, but with nothing. Nothing.
Not even a parent. Yeah. Not even a parent to put an arm around them, which every kid needs.
And Sally, it's the worst thing now. Worst thing is winter is coming. And these kids wore the same piece of cloth. And imagine them now with one shirt enduring the winter with bare feet, wet ground, and still, we hear still come to school dedicated.
And for people who aren't aware, David, it becomes extremely cold during the winter in Gaza, right?
Yeah.
In that part of the world.
Temperature difference up there.
And there are kids who, obviously are completely traumatized. They've lost their parents. And they're also experiencing the physical challenges of now receiving food, having not had food for a long time, which also has its dangers. Explain the sorts of things that you have to deal with these children and how their trauma is manifesting.
And you're absolutely correct. I mean, in the beginning, when we started, those kids had experienced severe malnutrition. And our group, the first, as we were also engaged when the polio virus broke, I activated the Gate Foundation, the Rotary Foundation and everything. But when you have a kid that haven't had food for days and you introduce this nutrition, they can have a worse problem, which is the refeeding syndrome. And if you're not careful and you're not, even though you think you are doing the right thing, you can harm this kid. And so our group worked tirelessly with expert from the world expert in breastfeeding syndrome, which happened to be in Tel Aviv. She helped us develop this program, and we were the first group to enter the thiamine vitamins to help that. We are small, though, as I said, we are very small, but we work. We work under the WHO and UNICEF. But we brought this up to surface, and now all the NGOs are aware of it. So again, there are so many challenges on every level that our group is committed to deliver the best care. And we have, I mean, perfect, as I said, we get stuck only to dividing the kids with meals or education or healthcare. But we decided to do this holistic and not stop there on the psychotherapy. And now the kids love the zoo. Like no one else, I could say it proudly. I am a proud owner of the zoo, only animals in Gaza. My 9-year-old, I mean, she named all these animals, and she told me, I will disown you, Dad, if you don't take care of these animals. We have a zoo in our house, but well, that's what we do.
That, as you say, it's incredible therapy for the kids. Kids love animals.
Correct.
And how wonderful that you've brought those two things together to bring these children a bit of joy. David, for people watching who do feel utterly helpless and want to do something, what can they do?
There's plenty. You found a trusted NGO. There are unfortunately others that's why I ended up creating my own. You need to find the right NGO and that deliver care and not just about words and not just show you videos. And, so you need to, there's opportunities. If you want, you can work with us. We are the Gaza Children Village. Reach out, help us make this dream. This is our legacy for these kids. Is make this hospital happen. We're ready to make it happen. Help us to expand the education, the holistic approach. But one more initiative, Sally, and I'll stop. And two of them, but I will mention it and I'll stop there. While we only focus on the orphans and the kids, the news came to us that single moms are being exploited, unfortunately, food for sex to provide for their kids. And you're a mom, and if you haven't had food for days and your kids is screaming, it doesn't have anything, you'll do anything you power. And so we are, as an initiative, part of it, even though with limited resources, we're building now a women's center. So we always try to create a win-win solution. And that center will be attached to our academy, where Wall Center Kitchen will create a community kitchen and the ingredients. And for 2 weeks, these moms will come in, make meals for themselves, for their kids, for the kids in the academy and the community. And it's an opportunity to empower them, to give them independence, and to help, the community in itself. So we are doing that now. And we're in the process of that, again, Palestinian and Israeli moms, which is the beauty about our NGO. For the first time, we are the only NGO that bring in these groups. So we're not only in the immediate relief, we are building the bridges of hope and communication, but with the decent people. Again, there are extremes on both sides. We are appealing to the people who are, think of their heart and they have that humane aspect. And the last but not least, we are working with, if the President of the United Emirates hears me, we are working on an initiative. We would love for you to host this, where we bring the orphans of the Israelis from October 7th and the orphans from Gaza to come together to the Emirates for the first time, so the kids can be together. For the first time, they can be kids and enjoy themselves and look to the world and say, in one shoulder to shoulder, enough is enough. This is our future. Make it better for us. And if you are the President of the United Arab Emirates, I hope you can make it happen.
Well, if that incredible moment did ever happen, David, I certainly will cover it living here in the UAE, and what a moment that would be. Thank you so much for coming on. Your work is absolutely humbling, and I wish you all the best with this critical work that you're doing for some of the most vulnerable people on the planet. Thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you to everyone for watching. If you've enjoyed listening to David Hassan, please hit subscribe. It's completely free and you'll see when our updates drop. Share this with your friends, leave us a comment, let us know what you'd like to hear more about, and we'll see you again really soon.